Welcome everybody to another edition of Krakencast. Krakencast is that podcast where we talk to people in creative fields, from art directors, game devs, and especially to streamers. Today we are joined by a very well-rounded creator, DeltiasGaming. DeltiasGaming is an ESO stream team member, Twitch partner, has a website with a bunch of amazing ESO builds, has a robust YouTube channel. So we're going to get to know Deltia, get to know about ESO, and get to know about just everything about gaming that we can. So without further ado, thank you for joining us on the podcast this week, Deltia.
Yeah, man, it's an honor. That was quite the intro. I feel like I'm getting an honorary PhD or something today. Wow, real impressive.
It's the time of year. Walk down and get your degree, huh? So really just kind of kicking things off, kind of the question I try to ask everybody first time they're ever on the podcast is, what ultimately led to you deciding to stream? Obviously, streaming something you've been at, taking breaks from, come back and hit really hard. But what initially led you to thinking, you know what, I want to stream, because it's different than any other form of content you can make?
That's a really good question. I've asked myself that recently. I don't remember like the genesis of it. Like I remember YouTube. And so the reason I started content creation was I was kind of, messing around with games, and I really knew the games. I played a lot. I was leading a guild, and I didn't really have much going on in my life and so forth. So I'm like, well, why not just make these guides on what I'm doing to help other people in my guild? And if I actually go back to my childhood, I remember I think I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I was making GeoCity sites for guides, games. It's funny. So it was always in me to want to teach and share my passion and enthusiasm with gaming. And so I forget why I started YouTube, and I met some folks via YouTube like, hey, you should stream on Twitch. I think it just transitioned from Justin TV at the time. So I had like a following on, YouTube. Originally I started Star Wars Republic, and it was very, very small. And I switched to ESO, and I just started making videos. I'm like, hey, if I learn something, I'm just going to share it to save people time. And then I started streaming and interacting with people, and I was hooked. And I went through roller coasters of ups and downs of liking it and not liking it. But right now, it's what I love. I love to stream. I do love making YouTube videos as well, but I'm pretty introverted, actually. You wouldn't guess that if you watch me or talk to me, but I love interacting with the people. So some days I don't feel like doing it. Some days, just like any job, basically, you don't always feel like going to work. But when you fire it up and you look at the chat and they're making jokes and we're all learning and sharing stuff together, it's kind of like, the way I put my stream is, it's kind of like being at a LAN party with a bunch of people. I just happen to have the controller, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And I feel a lot the same way. Use a different analogy, but still kind of the party analogy. Like the days I have a bunch of content planned and excited, feeling extroverted, that's easy. The days I'm feeling really introverted, I wouldn't want to hang out with somebody. I liken it to any time a friend has been like, hey, come on, just you only have to go to the party for 15 minutes, just got to say hi. Yeah. And the minute you say hi, all of a sudden you see all those people, you're talking. And I think stream is the same way. Like you said, people are laughing and joking. Minute one, all of a sudden you're like, okay, no, I'm glad I came.
It's fun. It's great. Yeah. So, but I remember that. So I was thinking about this recently, but it's always been in my genetics, basically. My DNA is to share what I learned. And when I first started, I didn't think I'd, do this for a business or whatever. It was just a hobby, of a way for me to find creativity. And I kind of go back to my childhood again. Wasn't good with singing, wasn't good with dancing, I didn't really have any creative arts. I always found creativity expression through, usually wrestling or physical activity. Entire life, physical activity or gaming is the way I found like creative expression. And where other people might, play music and stuff, I never had that. So it was a way, an outlet for me to feel creative and teach and coach, which are really core values to myself. And it just blossomed into something. And, I took a break from it and so forth, but it just dragged me back, man,
Yeah. And something, just rolling back to one of your earlier comments, because I think we're in a very similar like eras of growing up on the internet. Because I also, my first forays, Angel Fire and GeoCities, teaching myself to HTML code. I was big into JRPGs, so I had was making sites about Final Fantasy VI and like these other like Super Nintendo games. But just the idea of like you said, being able to put that information out there, share with people, and like find these like communities who enjoyed the same things I did, which was we didn't have like the discords and stuff. We might have had like ICQ and AIM, but it was a lot harder to find a community back then.
And, you know, I don't know where you grew up, but I was in rural Nebraska, and needless to say, gaming wasn't a big social activity, right? People looked at me like I was a weirdo and you're throwing your life away. What are you doing? I had trouble reading. I always tell this story, and people probably think it's BS, but dyslexic. And, you know, I kind of joke about myself about having trouble reading, but it was due to the Final Fantasy games. I had to force myself to read and get through the text dialogue because I was so interested in the adventure, and what to find out that it hit me in a different way than just, oh, it's an entertainment. It's a hobby. It really pushed me to try to improve my reading and understanding. And yeah, so gaming is pretty core to me, along with the content creation and the other side of it. Yeah, it's important.
I think that's really interesting. You mentioned being dyslexic. I'm not dyslexic myself, but I have ADHD. So I have similar issues, not the exact same, but when coming to like focusing and reading. And it's interesting to hear about like, so video games like Final Fantasy games and things like that kind of taught you how to work through those skills in a way that, you know, standard education system doesn't always do. And then that led to you wanting to be a teacher yourself. Like you said, put out websites and teach people about the games. And I really think that's really interesting how that kind of correlates to like, this thing gave you this kind of knowledge and this education, and then that inspired you yourself to kind of be, I mean, I guess one of the cores of your content is education.
It is, and that's what I get the biggest kick out of. I mean, a lot of entertainment stuff and getting really hyped and streaming, but it touched me in a way that a teacher couldn't, essentially. It motivated me in a way that a teacher couldn't, because the adventure, that was the aspect that I was so excited about, the Final Fantasies and living out these adventures. It led me to join the Army pretty much, because I'm stuck here doing the same old things. The people are graduating high school to get a job around there. There's no way out. You're trapped, right? And if your family doesn't have money, they're not educated, there was no way out for me. This is how I lived out these vicarious adventures. And, you know, it let me kind of get a master's degree because I just wanted to prove people wrong that I was an idiot. I guess we're getting deep now today, but I'm just like, no, I'm going to bulldog through this. And that resistance, resilience, and work ethic, it might not come to me easy, but I know if I want something, I will doggedly do it. And it's ironic that some of the best guides I've done, it's writing. It's writing scripts. It's reading and editing. The thing that I had so much trouble with as a child is now one of the best strengths. I didn't give up on it. And really, I know we're going deep already, but it was due to that gaming part and trying to push through that. And having a light at the end of the tunnel, which is the fascinating stories and the adventures. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. And I think that's a really motivating, even if we're getting deep, a really motivating message is like making sure, like pushing yourself to overcome what you might be a limitation or not be fully understood, as far as, you know, there's a lot more understanding out there about things like ADHD and dyslexia and things, but there wasn't, you know, when we were growing up. And I could go to any class and, you know, they could, same thing, they could want me to focus on these things and they didn't interest me, but the ability to focus on these worlds and these games, like you said, that drove you to, you know, join the military and turned what was a weakness in your youth actually into a strength, which I think is really inspiring.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it was in the 90s. I mean, I always tell people my story, my background. It's like I was what's the saying, a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. And God bless them, they didn't know. And I had a couple great advocates and teachers, and my mom. I mean, she fought the schools, man. If you want to know what advocacy is like, that's what my mom, she was an advocate. She just said, no, I'm not taking no for an answer. My son's not screwed up. You're going to figure out how to work with them. Always fought for more recess and stuff, because if anyone who knows me, I mean, I exercise like a maniac for 90 minutes a day. It's just built into me. When I was a kid, I needed that. So I learned a lot of valuable lessons, and I looked back on it and I realized there was a lot of friction and dysfunction, but it was good because my family got me through it, and gaming and the adventure and the reading, and it all makes you who you are. Even you look back at those really troubling times, ironically, they're some of the biggest growth. Not in the moment because it's tough dealing with it, but looking back, it really goes, oh, that's why this is the way I am. And I like it. I'm grateful for those moments.
Yeah, I mean, during those moments, it's like, I wish I was anywhere else but here. I wish I was maybe anyone else but me. Why is my brain not working? Why am I dumb, right? You know, I'm just speaking for myself. Like, but then you look back and go, oh, that taught me how to overcome. My parents doing this taught me advocacy. Like, you look back and you're able to like gain those lessons, Which I also think is really important because obviously in the streaming space, in the MMO space, it's people from every single walk of life. I had a chat one time that had a 16-year-old who just joined the game and a 72-year-old, and they were playing. And
Wow.
that is an age like
Yeah.
that's the kind of outliers of the age range, but it just kind of brings people together and being able to, I think, going through what you went through, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like those are the sort of things that let us like be able to communicate to such a wide group of people. Because like you said, there was the way the schools necessarily taught in the 90s didn't work, but these things worked for you. But now here you are trying to teach different ways to like show people how to use builds, how to do PvP, how to do all these things. And I feel like that would probably translate through like being able to like connect with different people depending on like, oh, I read this guide and I don't get it, and have you be able to go, oh, on stream, go, oh, but you can do this, and like explain it to them in a way that, you know, makes it all click for them.
Yeah, I mean, any teacher wants to have their students outperform them and learn it. And when the light bulb comes on and you hear someone, essentially, gaming's a hobby for a lot of us, but some of us, you know, use it. It's more of a social outlet or something else for other folks. But you don't want people to not be able to enjoy it and feel like their character is powerful and impactful and they don't have to spend 80 hours figuring out the build. So that's a gift that if you can explain these really complex things very quickly and succinctly, it's a gift. And giving that is what you're meant to do. And if it's great when you read the comments, like all the troll idiot comments just go away when you get someone who literally, I think it was yesterday. Funny you bring up the age. This woman commented, and you know, I assume it's real, but hey, I'm 62. I'm married. My husband plays this game. We have friends that are also 70s, and we were struggling with DPS. And you released this guide, and I can't tell you, it's really changed our gaming experience. That's like bang, hits you in the feels as a YouTuber, because you're sitting there writing these guides, and someone sees it, and you're like, every sentence I'm writing, I'm like, okay, what's someone going to perceive this, or how are they going to take this, or how can they actually use this information? You're going back and you're editing, right? So the audio and the visual make, and you're like, sometimes you sit there and question yourself, is anyone going to watch this crap? You know, is this really going to help anyone? And then you get one of those comments and you're like, okay, keep pushing. This is working. This is really helping people.
Yeah. And we talked about YouTube, and we talked about websites and stuff. I'm just kind of curious. We talked a little bit. We had a personal call not too long ago. We were talking about a variety of things. You kind of talked about the way YouTube works and the algorithm and falling out of that. I'm just curious if you wanted to maybe share a little bit of that, because I thought that was really insightful for anybody who might be looking at YouTube, whether they want to release videos or just want a deeper understanding of how kind of that process works.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert, but really the algorithm changes all the time. And it's, to be honest with you, it's easier starting a new YouTube channel than resurrecting a dead one, because you essentially build up momentum. So if you continue to release videos and they're well received, you can continue to get recommended. But when you have a dead channel and you come back to it 2.5 years later and no one's getting recommendations, you have a very, very small percentage of people, even if you have 1 million subs, that are getting alerted that you released a video. So it's a real big uphill battle. That's why you see some people that start a YouTube channel in a month, they have 100,000 subs, because every single video they have gets recommended. And regardless of the editing, regardless of the content it has, they got wind of the algorithm. And so if I look at my channel's history in its totality, it's ironic. So it was like this, bar nothing burger for an entire year. And then it went just like 2015 blew up. But I released videos for 1 year and worked 12, 16 hours a day. Video, 500 videos, bang, blew up. So a lot of people, video. Oh, I'm not famous on the internet and driving a Bentley. I'm moving on. You just got to kind of build up momentum, and then bang, you get recommended, and that's how you grow. So I guess the thing is, you're going to learn through failures and successes. And if they're not failures, if you can actually learn from. So I'm always doing experiments, going, did this work and why? Why not? And going back and looking at it, the analytics, not treating it like a hobby, but treating it like a business. Some things just work and you don't know why. You're trying to evaluate why. Some things don't work, and that's just equally as good information if you can find out why. What is my audience actually coming to me for? Right? Well, what do they really want to know? Because I might want to put out a video and I'm like really excited about it, and then no one watches it. Why? My audience doesn't give a crap about that from me. One experiment was like gamer to gym rat. it kind of screwed up my channel because I have these gaming videos and then I have fitness videos and I have this. I have a podcast and I have a 2-hour long video. The viewer doesn't know what they're getting. And if you look at top meta strats, that's why they have VODs channel, Shorts channel, other game. They have, Cypher in them. They have 17 different channels that they all manage because they're down to the recommendations. So again, it's a long-winded answer, but if anyone's listening to this, I would say don't give up. I mean, really give it a year. Give it a year. And you need to find if you have value. I always tell people on the streamer side of things, if you go back to my whole life's history, what has it been about? Being super excited and enthusiastic with super high energy. This isn't something I'm faking. This isn't like a new thing for me. I'm like really high energy. Entire life has been that. So what I do is I practice habits and rituals and daily practices to crank up my energy level so that way I can produce. But you have something of value. Everyone does. There's something about you that people are attracted to, whether it's like your insightfulness, the way you speak, something. I would say hone in on that if you're a new content creator, both on YouTube and Twitch, and try to find that voice or what your attributes are, what genetics or whatever that you have, and crank it up. Some people are just skill streamers. They don't look at chat. They just, they got 20,000 people viewing them because they're just so good at the game. So there's a broad variety, and you don't have to be someone else. You just have to be the best version of yourself. And if you're talented and hardworking, they'll find you.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. And I think that's really, really great advice because at the end of the day, I come from an analytics background before I decided to start streaming. I used to do brand and reputation development for small, medium growing tech companies. And everything we look at is the 90, 120, 1 year. Basically, we look at small trends on a 3 to 4 month thing. We look at it overall year goals. And like you said, you can't really, you can see what's working and you can make adjustments on the fly from a month to month perspective. But like you said, give things a year. Same goes for Twitch streaming, because I don't feel personally like that's kind of what we talked about. That's why I'm kind of bringing it up in the podcast that I found so insightful when I talked to you is we don't really know what our voice is. When you start streaming, you're borrowing a lot from other people. You're trying to convey that in your own way. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's figuring out, to use a bigger streamer's term, the yoink and the twist. It's figuring out, okay, this is the sort of thing I'm good at making, but what makes it different? Because if I do a build guide, it's going to be and I just do a standard build guide, it's just going to be a photocopy of somebody like yourself who does like these established build guides. So if that's not my style, if that's not my voice, then it doesn't work. And that taking a year, taking time to find your voice, I think is super important. And it's really good to hear that. That's just content creation. That's YouTube. That's Twitch. That's anywhere you want to be. And I think that's super insightful because once you find your voice, that's usually when you start seeing those kind of like peaks start to come. You start seeing that growth because people who come in don't just see you as somebody doing the same thing that somebody else is doing. They start going, oh, this is what this person's about. And if they like it, they stay. And if they don't like it, that's cool. There's somebody else they can go watch that they're gonna like.
Yeah, and that's I always tell people if I'm mentoring other streamers is ask your spouse or partner or friend or family member, what do they actually like about you? Get specific. Like ask my wife, what do you like about me? What is there attractive about me? It's not my orange face spray tans. More on that later. But what is it about me? Oh, you're enthusiastic. You're fun to be around. You're high energy. You're this, you're that. And so don't be what you're not. Don't be what you're not. And same thing with YouTube. I've done these videos, like humor videos. I think they're hysterical and they're great. People are not coming to my channel for humor. On YouTube, they're not. Stream, it's a little bit different. We get loud and crazy and silly. But YouTube, anytime I should do a humor video, maybe I'll try this one. Nope. Negative. Do a humor video. Nope, negative. Okay, we've learned our lesson. You're not coming to my YouTube channel for humor. Roger that. But you're coming for insightful information that's concise, I think. And so you're going to have to do experiments and find through trial and error. It's not going to be all green arrows up and down. It's going to be a roller coaster. But once you hone in on that, then you just keep producing it over and over and over and polishing the diamond. I keep talking about it as trying to continually professionally grow, see what people are doing that are better than you, technically, performance-wise, broadcasting, everything, and just keep it's a profession. Even if you treat it like a hobby and it's your side gig and you're trying to break into the industry, treat it like a profession. Your goal is to get better as an influencer, broadcaster, or whatever it is. And it's funny because it's kind of like similar to bodybuilding and getting in shape. when you're on a diet or you're working out and you're struggling, you're like, man, am I losing any weight? Am I gaining any muscle? Am I looking different? Is my appearance changing? You know, day by day, you don't see it because you look in the mirror every day. But if you see a friend a month, 3 months, 4 months later, like, my God, you look way different. You know, you lost a lot of weight, or you got to gain a lot of muscle. We're like, oh, okay. But if you continue to have those daily, weekly, monthly practices of, okay, I'm going to sit down for 8 hours, I'm dedicating performance improvements. What am I doing wrong? What can I improve? What can I polish? Dramatic increase in a year. I mean, look at my stream. Audio jacked up, visuals jacked up, and I got a lot of room to improve, but I just kept trying to hammer at it and keep on progressing and not get stuck in a rut. Because it, over time, just like anything, just like a diet, if you just do it day in, day out, the boring, monotonous crap that all the top pros do, you think they got there because they're special. Well, they're special, hardworking, and consistent. You know, no one gets on top for random reasons. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's my assessment of it.
I agree. No one gets on top for random reasons. Even if you're right place, right time, right game, and you blow up, there was a lot of people. I mean, we can just go back to like early Twitch days. There was a lot of people who blew up, but you know, even if they don't stream to as many people as they might once have, Ninja, Shroud, these people are still streaming to huge.
They're still relevant.
They're still relevant, and that's because they didn't just blow up, ride the wave, and then kind of fall off. They, even with that blow up, stayed, you know, figuring it out, pushing the meta, following the metas, and things of that nature. And I think I completely agree with that. I think the minute you stop growing, you kind of just start dying. Like, you can get to a certain point where you can always maintain if you know, I'm not at that size, but there is a size you could theoretically just kind of maintain if you wanted to. But at the end of the day, if you want to continue to like evolve creatively and grow, like, you know, as a content creator, you do have to like always be like looking at things, looking all around, you know, looking at the people above you, looking at the people below you, just kind of looking around, looking inside.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Looking around, trying to always improve. It's a business, right? Every business is trying to do that. And the ones that stay around forever and ever and ever, they're hungry. They're hungry when they're successful. They're hungry when they're on the come up. Because everything's sunshine and rainbows when you're on the come up. But when you start hitting new levels, me included, I fell off because I was like, well, I hit this level and, oh, okay. I didn't push it forward. I didn't look for the new horizon, the new goal, the new mountain to climb, the new adventure, the new getting out of my comfort zone. You know, just sat in my comfort zone and withered away, essentially.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's something that, like, I feel like is also a unique perspective, because obviously you created content for a while. There was a big gap that came back. It looks like, I mean, relying on Twitch Tracker, you know, 2021 is when you really kind of started pushing, like, if we're just looking at Twitch again, and then a little kind of a plateau at first, kind of came back to around 300 or so average over the course of the month, and then like near the end of the year started spiking and picking up and stuff like that, which again is a testament to, if you do take breaks, if you do come back to stuff after whatever reasons, it's still a matter of like persistence and keeping at it.
System. Yeah, because you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have bad weeks, and you're like, what am I doing? I just could have sat at my normal job. I don't have to ride the roller coaster, but get up the next day, we're gonna stick with it. We're gonna continue to find out what people like about me, hone in on it, and crank it up to 10. And as long as we keep showing up and be consistent, and, you know, if we get sick or need a vacation, we'll do those things. But I set out a goal within the first year is to be disgustingly consistent. Disgusting. No one's going to out-consistency me. No one's going to out-keep their word than me. Guarantee it. Not possible. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm doing it. Unless I break my leg or something, I'm showing up to work. I'm giving my all. And people realize that. They recognize it. They can see the improvements and the dedication and the consistency. They really can, because it's just like a job. You know, if you're showing up and bright and smiling and trying your best every day, people will be consistent. But you have to do it over a long period of time. I mean, there was, you know, New World came out, Elden Ring came out, Lost Ark came out, and it's an MMO where I'm not a variety streamer yet. So you get hit with a hammer when those things happen. You have to find new ways to evolve, either jump on those trains or try to do something.
Yeah, when we're a single game streamer, like, double-edged swords, right? If you're a single game streamer, you can build up. It's easier to kind of build a community if you're in a community that has growth potential and you stick with that game and you love that game. But it's the double-edged sword of, we also kind of live and die with the single game. If the game's viewership and attendance is down, which ESO does have those down points, kind of after like Deadlands, it goes down, and then it took longer to kind of start coming back up because, like you said, after a drought of games over COVID, Elden Ring came out, Lost Ark, like there's a lot of new games out there, and that's going to hit numbers like across the board. So like you said, being disgustingly consistent, being able to either figure out how to branch out more, if not branch out, be willing to like accept that there's the highs, lows, and there's plateaus with the game that you're in.
Yeah, and then always, trying different games isn't always a positive. I mean, we've talked about this, but there's experiments, right? And you try to experiment. And I think my biggest thing is when I try other games or do other broadcasts, I have to be me. So if I'm streaming something that's a different game, but I'm super enthusiastic, I'm interactive, I'm knowledgeable, just going nuts like I normally do, okay, it's a good stream. Regardless if my viewership's cut in half or not, I can grow it back up because I know the mechanics of it. If I try a different game and then, 4 hours in, I'm not talking, not looking at chat, I'm not engaged, I'm not having fun, it's not for me. That's what Elden Ring was like. I played it, didn't get it. Nothing against the game. It's just, it's not a genre that I'm used to. I don't understand. I'm frustrated 5 minutes in. I'm like, all right, this is game. This is not for me. So that's the biggest thing that I have a problem with, a barrier to trying different outlets and games is, can I be me? And is it going to be sustainably fun for a while? Because Elder Scrolls Online, for all the downsides, things I don't like about it, it's still just really fun to play most of the time.
Right, and that's it's the meat, the potatoes, even if we branch out, because it's the game we know is fun. It's not just safe. If a game is safe, it's one thing, and sometimes you need to branch out if you're playing it safe, or find ways to challenge yourself. But like at the end of the day, it's fun, it's exciting. If you go to your stream, for anybody who hasn't been, who might be listening to this later or watching this later, been to DeltiasGaming stream, it's high energy, it's intense, and it's fun. And if you like just like intense energy, a little bit of trolling, maybe a lot of bit of trolling depending on the stream. If you just want to have a good time with the content, it's there. And the fact, like you said, for the ups and downs, anything you love, you're going to be extra critical of. Anything you've put the amount of hours and time into that you have, you're going to be critical of. And we're critical of things that we love because we do want them to be better. But there's still that energy there. If the game was totally something that was just like had killed that fun, it'd be a whole different story. Than it still has a lot of fun to it, even though sometimes it has some really elements we would like them to change.
Yeah, but it's still fun. And I think once I find my next game that's like that, and I'll take a leap of faith and still try to do it. As long as this is how I know. If I'm up in the middle of the night and I get up and start writing guides, I'm jumping to that game. That's how I know. It's no viewership count. It's nothing like that. Can I wake up and go, all right, I'm so excited to write guides and stream this game. I cannot wait to share this. Then I'm ready to go to the next game. That's all that matters to me, because I know if I get that, I can be successful in there. And hopefully it's a major game. A lot of people play it, but I haven't found that yet. And it's ironic, when I wasn't streaming, I found a lot of games like that. I found Dragon Age 3. All these games I put on the shelf because I was, singular focus, tunnel vision on ESO. I played Star Wars Battlefront 2. Just had such a fun time with that game.
That's a fun game.
So, oh my God. First time I got Darth Maul. I'm like, you get a hero in this game you don't know what we're talking about. You work up like as a little grunt soldier, and then you can get points, and you can eventually get a hero. So I got the hero for the first time. I mean, I played for like hours and hours, never got one. I get this guy. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go chop up everyone. I'm going to delete everyone. And then like a random little critter guy just kills me. I mean, total noob moment. I was just like infuriated. So I went back to the drawing board and started watching guides. I'm like, all right, I'm done being a potato at this game. What's going on? I got a different mouse, got a huge mouse pad, understood DPI, looked at modeled every top pro. Shocker. In a week, I was dominating everybody. But that game, visually, audio, it's a fun. I might play that tomorrow on stream for May 4th. Actually,
May 4th is a good day to take a day not off, but day off of a main game and play a Star Wars game, I feel. But yeah, what you're saying about consistency and passion and stuff all makes a lot of sense. And it's something like I've mentioned before too, when people ask me about branching out. And it's, if you're passionate, if you have a passion for it, then the number hit's not that bad. Cause like, sure, if my numbers drop from, 100, 110 average, which is my personal CCV, down to like 50 or 60, that's still half, that's still 50% who are watching me do something new, and it builds, and it was less at first and it builds up over time, but I'm passionate about, for example, this podcast. And so I just kept doing it, and that built it up. But if it had just been I'm jumping into a random game on Tuesdays and I'm kind of okay about, but I'm not really passionate about, I don't think it would have resonated or been able to like grow. But if it's something you're passionate about, I always feel like, and tell people, like, if you're passionate about branching out into something, that passion will come through, and you just have to be, again, like you were saying, grind it out, like 90 days, 120 days. If you're taking a day into a different game consistently for 3-4 months and you're still not able to build, maybe take a look at it. But if you're seeing growth, even if it's not as big as your numbers in your main game, and you're passionate about it, that you just it's kind of like building your initial stream, except for you have a bonus if you have a bigger base to start from.
Yeah, you build a bigger base. But my thing is, it's not just the streaming for me to grow. Like, streaming, people think that you're going to get huge if you stream more and more and more. And I think it's the complete opposite. You need to stream a certain amount of time, collect footage and understand games and interact with your audience. And then it's everything else that nobody sees, which is the core, the guts, the engine of growth. YouTube, website, social media, Reddit, TikTok, blah, 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 blah. You're doing all of these things outside of streaming. Streaming might be 40% of your day, actually, when you calculate it all. You take a day off from streaming. That's not a day off. Those are the things that are a catalyst to your growth. That's how I got a following on Twitch, was all the YouTube videos. Oh, I saw your YouTube video. I saw your YouTube video. So if you want to do another game, this is a lesson to myself here, is great, play their game, but you got to offer something to get you discovered. Why is someone going to come watch you?
Right.
When there's people that have 18,000 viewers and 1,000, you're at 300 or 50. You got to have that distinguishing thing. And unfortunately, Twitch basically doesn't have any discoverability in the way I see it.
Not really.
It all comes from all the things you do outside. So I see people doubling down on what I call doubling down on stupid. Not to be offensive here, but because I had to learn this the hard way too.
I think it's a fair term.
Yeah, they're doubling down on stupid, and they're doing basically 16-hour days, but they're getting nothing from it. And if they look at their average, money or whatever they're getting per hour, you'd be much better working a normal job, and you're not growing any. So that's not a profession. That's just a hobby that basically doesn't make you any money. Because at the end of the day, this is how I provide for my family. Yes, it's fun. Yes, I'm playing games, but this is serious for me. This is what put foods on the table. I'm doing this as a profession, so I have to look at what is actually producing results professionally, not just this is a hobby, something I want to do and play. Great. I can start a second YouTube channel for that. And I guess why I share that is you need to do things of value outside of streaming. A lot of people start content creation and they're like, why am I not famous? Why am I not, number one? Why are people not watching me on Twitch? Because you're not doing the 70% of crap no one wants to do. You're not sitting there on a Friday night, like me, editing out breaths of videos for 3 hours. You're not doing that. You're not making social posts. You're not answering comments for a gazillion hours a day and sifting through all the nasty ones. That's the things that no one sees that helps you grow. And no, I'm not like some mega streamer or something, but those are the tips that I can give people. Is it's just like exercising. And I go back to this, it's something I know, but people think that, I go for a walk for 60 minutes a day. Why am I not shredded with 6-pack abs all of a sudden? Because how you get in shape is almost 70% food. The rest of it is probably sleep and very little exercise. So you could work like a dog for 90 minutes a day and just go nuts in the gym. But if you're eating a cupcake diet, you're not going to get in shape. So I guess a long-winded rant to say, work on the other crap that no one wants to do and consistently get better in what you deliver, and you will grow. And if you don't, maybe it's just not for you, or you find another avenue like we had talked about, where a lot of broadcasters, they start off and maybe they're not good at broadcasting for whatever reason. You know, I'm not good at math. I'm not going to win a spelling bee. Hey, that's just not in the cards for me. Maybe you're great at graphics or technical stuff, and you can make a really well-run business editing videos for top streamers and make very, very good money and be very lucrative at that.
Yeah, and it's about finding your path, and sometimes, like you mentioned there, taking one path of content creation can lead to something else. I've seen plenty of streamers. I have a friend who makes a lot more money on art than they ever did streaming, but they didn't make a lot of money on art when they started out, but they started streaming, they started doing art streams, they started making emotes for friends, they started selling emotes, they started making emotes on stream, and as their art stream got bigger, kind of like how you're mentioning YouTube kind of filtered into your Twitch, their Twitch filtered out, and their streaming is more of a byproduct as they were building up their brand, and they've reduced their streaming, but they still do the streaming to feed it feeds their main source of income, which is the art for streamers, the emotes for streamers, characters, and like overlays and all of the art stuff they do, and they stream making that stuff because it helps them interact with people and people see it, but their main source of income will never be streaming. But it does, again, it's how those webs kind of mix and match. And then to an even lesser extent, I always like to bring it up when I talk about growth, is when you're first growing, maybe trying to do everything at once is a little bit much, but even then, looking at ways to grow, I constantly would watch back my VODs. As my VODs got longer, I would watch chunks of them. I would go back 3 months and see, like you mentioned working out, and I think that's a good analogy, because I would jump back 3, 4, 6 months and watch clips and VODs from that time ago. That way I could see like the night and day change over 6 months that you're not going to see from a day to day. And sometimes it helps to go back and go, when you're like, I don't think I'm working on anything, you go, oh, I've added this. Oh, I've added that. I've changed this around. I've become more engaging in this way. Oh, and it kind of sometimes can help, even not even looking at other platforms, to kind of self-reflect and go, see how far you've come. Kind of like, if you weigh yourself every single day, even if you're dieting and stuff, you're going to see incremental stuff, and you're going to put some water weight on, or you're going to have less sleep one night, and you're going to be up a pound. But if you just, what I was always told every time I've ever dieted is basically weigh yourself weekly for the most part, and that you're going to see, that's how I always started to do it, was weekly. Because it would be up and down. It'd be like nothing's changing. But like you said, if you look back over weeks and months,
over the course of time, it's a little, your body, I mean, water weight, just huge fluctuations. I mean, I could just drink a gallon of water before I go to bed and wake up, 10 pounds heavier or something. Oh my God. Or you have glycogen stores and blah, 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 super complex things. But yeah. And the main thing you talked about, I really like to maybe dig in a little more, is you talk a lot about time, the percentages of the time you do this, the things that people don't see. You have no idea how much no one has no idea how much I evaluate my time. It's the thing that caps me from succeeding. And I think I told you, maybe someone else, but if I wasn't married and have kids, I'd work 18 hours a day, and that's not healthy. I'd burn out and go back to being a neurotic mess. But I would work 18 hours a day. I would do nothing but work, which isn't really fun. It's not playing video games per se. It's doing a bunch of other stuff. So now, as a father and husband, those are my number one priorities. And my health, actually, because that's probably number one, because if I don't take care of my mental and physical health, I can't be a good father, husband, content creator, citizen, so on. And so I'm constantly evaluating my time. How am I actually spending my time? Is it effective? I break down things like, should I go to the gas station to save 15 minutes? Or can I chunk the gas station to get gas in my car with another task? I swear to God, because there's only so many hours in the day. So I try to chunk these tasks together to get the most efficiency. So every single day is the most efficient. I wake up in the morning I know I'm going on a rant. This is kind of weird. I wake up in the morning, I do a meditation, and I go, what's the outcome for today? What do you want to have happen by the end of the day? What's success look like? Because usually you have one or two things that have to happen. Meaning I have to stream today. I have to exercise today. It's not an option. I have to make a YouTube video, not an option. There's no negotiating. We are doing this today. So when I look at my day in that regard, then all the endless to-do crap just kind of floats away, and here's what we got to get done. And then, because there'll be crap that comes up later in the day, you're just going to have to deal with. And that's a good way I've done my daily routine. And another thing I've been doing for years now It sounds silly, but a gratitude journal. I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. Various mental health folks told me to use it and stuff like that. Man, that's the stupidest thing ever. But dude, your life will radically change if you sit down before bed and no crap, right? 3 things that like were impactful to you, like people, emotions, who you are, blah, blah, blah. You start doing that every single day and you live much more grateful, not always looking ahead, which is a struggle that I have. But the outcome and the gratitude, the beginning and the end of my day is really honed in my day to get out the most out of it. So when a week goes by, I look back at a week. When I was working a real job, a week in this job feels like a year.
Yeah.
That's how much change is happening. Because like how I know this is I'll go like my hairdresser or someone else I see once a month. I'll be like, hey, this happened, this happened, this happened. They're like, that's a 3-week period. That's a 3-week period. I'm like, yeah, this deal happened and we got this and we had this sponsor stream. We did this charity live stream. I just saw you 3 weeks ago. That sounds like a whole new life. But it's life in the fast lane, and you really have to embrace that if you're going to do this. Because if it's just showing up to work, clocking in, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, no, and I agree completely. I actually likened my situation after not getting partnered, but after getting partnered like that. Because getting partnered, it's all this metrics and numbers, and Twitch says, do this little thing, do this little thing. So you cut this out, you do the type of stream you know is going to get you extra numbers, like whether you want to or not. And then afterwards, like I got to a point, and I didn't realize I had done it where, yeah, I was 9 to 5ing. I'd come in, my numbers would be fine, chat would be engaged, and I would have a good time. But then after like a month to 6 weeks, I looked back on it and went, where's my event streams? I'm not coming up, because I usually try to come up with like 1 or 2 like unique or event things. Like the 9 to 5s build towards these event things that I love to do, or these new creative things I want to try. And I wasn't doing that. And it dawned on me. That's why personally, for me, it was branching into other games to change the dial in my mind to make me think about ESO fresh. But I think that's like writing a gratitude journal, I think is a really good idea. And it's a good thing. Another thing that I do that's similar to that people like kind of scoff at, and like the bunch of like get rich quick self-help books, like we'll talk about vision boards and The Secret. But the truth is I found great success for myself. I utilize a vision board. I put together a vision board and I look at it each day, and it's a simple mesh of like words and pictures and stuff. It's actually just a Google document, but something about seeing these things that are my goals and things makes it easier, because the rudimentary concept, without getting too much into the psychological that I talked to with my psychiatrist, is if you see certain things and you read certain things every day, your mind is more trained to recognize them. So when those images, when those sort of things happen, your mind, you're kind of training your mind to recognize them. So it's not like just writing things down and willing them to an existence, but there's something about, and same with the gratitude, about like writing down things you're grateful for so you can keep stock and keep it fresh in your mind. Because like you said, this is a grueling job physically and mentally. Even as a hobby, it's grueling. It's very grueling.
Grueling as a hobby. Yeah. I mean, you're working a normal job and then you're coming home doing streaming and you're trying to grow and make YouTube videos and TikToks. And yeah. And what you think about is what you get. It's why I don't consume content that I don't care for. I don't hate watch anything. I think I've left 1 negative comment on YouTube in my entirety of watching YouTube. And when I left a negative comment, it was because I like the content creator. Because I don't want to consume my time with negativity and things I don't like. That makes no sense to me. It's not logical. You have one life. Why are you spending time consuming things that you don't like? So trying to consume things, and I get overconsumed with, I got to grow, I got to be this, or I got to be that. And it's like, brother, you got to slow down a little bit and smell the roses. So that's why it's really important for me to look at the gratitude aspect and not be so tunnel focused on what's the next step for me. Because what's the end goal? If, like Sadhguru always says, the Indian mystic, if I gave you $1 million right now, would that be enough? Oh, it could be cool for a month. If I gave you $10 million, would that be enough? Nope. Because it's not about money. I look at where I live. I mean, I have a nice house and stuff, but I don't have possessions. It's a game within a game, and it's never enough. Some of us have this endless need to expand. It's just a part of us. It'll never stop. It's like, why these billionaires want more money? They don't need more money. It's nothing about that. It's just a game, right? Trying to the game of money is its own thing, or the game of Twitch analytics or YouTube, because figuring out the analytics and how YouTube algorithm works, that's like me playing Final Fantasy back in the 90s now.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. You see what I'm saying? That's how I feel about it. Is you hit one, you like, yes, achievement pops up in real life. I figured something out. Got it.
Yeah, as much as I talk about looking at the 90 days and the 120 days, which I think are very important, so you don't just drop things early. I'm an analytics person. I look at every last little number of fidget, and I compare this to that. But it's Final Fantasy. It's right. It's Final Fantasy. It's it's materia. It's build guides. It's this piece will augment this piece, and this is how I'm going to eke out this extra little piece of DPS. This is how I'm going to beat. You know, and when I was a kid, I loved Japanese RPGs on the Super Nintendo, and it was before I knew about speed running. But like, I get in these things where like, how do I eke out the most powerful thing I can so I can beat this game at the lowest possible level? Like, I do things like that. So analytics to me, just for some people, numbers are not fun, but for me, like I said, it's stats, it's RPG stats, and it's interesting,
different sense, yeah.
But also, I like a lot of what you're saying, and I think it's really important for people to understand, like you said, you have one life, like hate viewing and hate watching, and even consuming yourself with hate. Because like something I always I heard and it's just stuck with me over and over is Twitch is a competitive space. You know, and I come from a theater background. I've ADHD. I've switched a lot of careers. Everything I've ever done in my life is competitive, but competition at the end of the day boils down to, you don't compete by looking at someone else and going, I don't look at your channel and go, Deltia's got 5 times the viewership, 8 times the viewership as me. It's because of, and make up random things why your viewership's higher than mine, or look at somebody else whose like numbers are rising but are below mine, go, oh, this person's coming from, and people get, I think, back to being consumed with negativity, which can happen so easily in the content creator spaces. True competitive space means it's a competitive field. There's only so many people who are going to watch things. There is only so many viewers. There is finite things, and it's competitive, but competition is, to me, based on goals. I set goals for myself for the year. I look at what those goals are. If I get close, I succeeded. If I go past them, I didn't set my goals high enough. If I don't come near, I need to figure out what I did wrong. And it's competitive in that I want to create the best product I can create so that my product is competitive in the space. And I think when you're talking about getting people hate watching, I think a lot of people get hung up on they're successful because they have boobs, you know, they're hot, they're successful because they're a VTuber, they're successful because X, Y, and Z, versus what can I do to learn and grow and make my product different than theirs so I stand out in this very competitive space.
Yeah, I looked so I been watching a lot of investment guides and Warren Buffett and so forth, and he has a kind of unique way to put it. Forget the exact way he puts it, paraphrasing, but like a unique competitive advantage, like a sustainable competitive advantage. And then he puts all the chips into the table and invest massively in a couple different companies, because he finds over the course of time, sitting, reading over and over and over, trying to find what's their unique competitive advantage, what can sustain them. It might not be cost, it might be brand, it might be reputation, it might be marketing, it might be this, it might be that. So I try to look at myself in that regard. So if someone excels past me or they're behind me or whatever, what is my competitive advantage? What is it that people come to me? What can I hone in? And then if someone is kicking my butt, I don't have to be nasty to them or make up nasty things. Like I look at Hack the Minotaur. He's a great YouTuber. And we've done streams together. He came on the charity stream. We've done YouTube videos together. And if he's more successful than me as a YouTuber, he's doing really good. And so I try to look at what he's doing and say, okay, what is he doing editing wise? How does he make this thing? It's no negative. I want to trash him or his builds suck or whatever. He's a great guy. And he offers a lot to the community, but he has a different approach than I do. So taking bits and pieces from what he's doing and maybe seeing if I can and do it in my own unique way. That's the competitive nature of any competitive environment. We all try to rip off each other and just make it our own. But if you have this unique thing about you're going to be good. You just have to find out what that is. Your level of good, I always tell people, it's kind of like genetics. Going back to bodybuilding, I could not really get very muscular. But if you want to get very lean, My genetics, I could do that literally in 2 weeks and just get completely shredded in 2 weeks with very little effort. But I can spend 3 years with enormous effort and not get very muscular. It's just genetics, right? Like Cypher PK, when we all went out to ZOS, I think in 2016 or 17. So we all played the Warden before it got released. And, I'm like, this guy's all right. He's pretty good at PvP and stuff and, whatever. Dude picks up the game and is whipping our butts like at an even playing field where no one's had this. I'm like, okay, he's just on a different level as a gamer. He just is. You can't, it's no hack, it's no trick, it's no magic. He has the genetics and the work ethic for that. And you can't hate on him for being successful. And you see it in reality. It's like, okay, it's not an accident this guy got successful. Very hardworking, very passionate, and got the genetics and kept at it where I didn't. So nothing but a great learning experience for me. Great learning experience.
And everything you said comes back to that learning experience. And I think that's so paramount. And everything you said there's very true. And that's the other thing you mentioned, collaboration, the yoink, the twist, the, taking content, but being able to present it in your unique way. Because again, maybe somebody watches somebody who's more, one of these other YouTubers or other streamers, and it just doesn't, back to, we learn in different ways. Maybe that's just not their style, but you can present it in the style that's yours. I think that's important. It goes back to, again, we only have, so much time. If you spend all of your time worrying about other people and blaming other people versus looking at how you can grow yourself, then that's honestly 9 times out of 10, I feel a lot of people get stuck not growing because they're so worried about what everyone else is doing.
They're so consumed by it. And when I was coming up, Loctavia, I didn't even look at analytics. I'd use Windows Movie Maker and hit 100,000 subs. Now, that's not a flex. That's not a brag or anything. I winged it. Now, obviously, I peaked, and it's very hard getting back up there. So I took for granted just how good I had it, right? I never got better. Or now I'm doing those things. But so often people, I never looked at what everyone else was doing. It's like, this is my thing. This is what I want to do. I'm just going to keep on cranking it. Now I do that. And so what I go back and do, it's been very helpful, is like you had said, watch past broadcasts. But I'll go back in the Google Analytics and the YouTube videos, and I'll actually see, where are people clicking off? Why? Why is this part of the video terrible? What are people actually wanting? And you'll see spikes and dips and trends. And then you're like, okay, this sucks. No one likes this part of the video. It's a 4-minute rant no one cares about. Trim. Well, you're not going to get the ad revenue. I'd rather have a 4-minute banger than a 60-minute long-winded rant that no one's going to subscribe. And so then every week we go back, look, me and my editor, okay, what happened with this video? Where did people click off? Was the thumbnail crap? Was the title crap? Blah, 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 SEO, da-da-da. And then, dude, dramatic increases in just a month doing that.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, I started doing something like that, well, after our talk, looked at even deeper into the analytics. And I'm a baby YouTuber. I'm just starting on that YouTube grind. But even just starting on it, I can look at my video with the most views. It's got like 900 views, and people are clicking off of that video in 30 seconds to a minute. And I would originally look at it and go, oh, this is a successful video, but I wasn't looking deep in. And I look at another video I did, months ago. It's got half the views, 500 views. It's about 22 minutes. And the average watch time on that's 18 minutes. I go, oh, this is, thanks again, huge. Talking to you, like, I'm just using my example because you gave me this kind of same wisdom on a call we had. And that's okay. That's huge. Okay. So this is my personality. This is the type of content people like when they're looking for it on YouTube. And this one video has retention. So that's what I need to be doing. Not worrying about the video that has a bunch of views because I had maybe a good thumbnail and a good title and got a bunch of people to click on it, and then they watch 30 seconds and go, what the fuck is this video, right?
So I went back like last week and looked, and I had one that had pretty good views, and I'm like, I wonder how many people subscribe from this, because it was kind of a clickbait title, I'll be honest with you. Very little, minimal. And then I go back and look at one that had probably half the views, much longer watch time. How many people subscribe to that? Triple. So I realized building my community over time it's not necessarily about the clickbait views and drama and opinions. for me, it's about delivering good information, spending way more time on the videos per video, and then just shotgunning them out, doing a one take 5-minute bomb. And then people subscribe to you. That's how I figured out how to build my community. Because when I do a one taker, or it's not super polished, or I don't write a script, it's complete hot garbage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't like watching it. I'm like, no, just not doing it. But those are the things you got to be honest with yourself. And hey, you got to take risk and bomb a couple times, because if you do, you can go back and go, why was that not successful? And you start trimming. Like I tell people, you're trimming the fat on what makes you a good content creator, meaning excess stuff that no one's really interested in. Take it off. We don't need to do that. Save 30 minutes in a video. Like I was teaching someone editing breaths. They're like, what do you mean editing breaths? Watch one of my videos. Do you hear breath the entire time? No. Is it a nightmare to sit there and zoom the timeline in and just sit there and go clip, 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 clip? Oh yeah, terrible. But those are the things that you watch the big YouTubers that they do. And you have to kind of model what the big people do, so that when you do hit a game or you do hit your voice, those videos get recommended and you're like, yeah, I'm going to watch every single DeltiasGaming video. Because when you do have one of those good videos and you have a catalog of, let's say, 1,000 videos like I do, you're going to start getting comments from like 5-year-old videos.
The evergreen content.
Exactly. They're going back and watching, random things. Like, okay. But anyway, I know we're going on rants, but it's just fascinating because it's so fun learning this stuff. It's so fun.
It's really fun learning this stuff. And I think, honestly, rants are fine. Getting in deep with things is fine, because the nature of this podcast is for us to be able to just like,
okay, good.
Dig in deep, because as much as it might come up on stream or we might talk about it, these are the sort of things that usually, because there's a lot more going on a stream that's not dedicated to this, maybe a few sentences out here or there. It's harder to get into, like, we're just going to talk an hour about content creation. So yeah, so don't worry about the rants. We're here for the rants. I think something you definitely mentioned there is also, it goes back to content is key. It goes back to even with Twitch streaming, getting your content right is key. It's always getting the content, because I mean, there's a reason people get their thumbnails tight. There's a reason people use the clickbaity titles, and those are very good. But if you focus so much on the thumbnail and the clickbaity title and they come into no content, it's kind of like if you're lucky enough on Twitch to get, say, a raid, or someone finds you for a variety of reasons, whatever way they found you, that's awesome. But if your content is not there, people are just going to, they're not going to come back. Like, most time with a raid, you're going to hemorrhage a lot of those people. Some people stick around, a chunk will follow. And then of those people that follow, only a few will probably find their way back. But the ones who find their way back do it because the content's there. And I always liken it to the story I heard from big streamer Ludwig, which is, I think, the most insightful one, just to put into big numbers. Shroud rated a guy who was 100 viewers. Checked back in a month. Ludwig did. The guy was still a 100 viewer streamer. Ludwig rated somebody who was around a 75 viewer streamer. Checked back in a month, and the person was up to 150. And the only difference in the growth is the person who was, again, a raid of that size is luck. But it's having the content, so when people come in, you grab some. Yeah, they're interested in what you have to show.
Yeah, can we touch on that for a minute?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, yeah, again, I'm going back to mentoring other content creators. Not like I'm some, whiz that's sitting on top of a mountain of perfection here, because I'm just making my way through it. So please take it with a grain of salt. But I outline my week before I stream. What am I actually going to do? I don't think, I shouldn't say nearly never, if I can't say that. Almost never wing it. Meaning I have a game plan of what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a budget build. We're going to test a PvP build. We're going to do a tier list. I'm going to return to Xbox. I'm going to do a subathon. We're going to be on the PT. I can go on and on and on and on. There's going to be an agenda of things we do. And then there'll be like freestyle area where usually I just go zerg around in Cyrodiil at the end of the stream and just, invite everyone as kind of a party. But usually at the very beginning of the stream, I find something I'm researching or something I'm doing. And that way chat is involved. And a lot of times I'll ask them to give feedback because they actually participate in some of the creation of these videos. Because if you crowdsource anything, you're going to find out really good information that you cannot find out by yourself. It's just not possible. So when we, the key word here, we do something together, they feel way more involved because they know that they're a part of this process. For instance, I had a PvE tier list. This thing was a massive project. And no, it's not as popular as some other YouTubers, but everyone was in the stream, was watching. Over the course of 3 weeks, I went every single class, play style, into Vetashram Hollows on Veteran with the same gear. So essentially 6 Stam tunes, 6 Magic tunes, Mag and Stam both had their same gear. That was really riveting because we kind of go through here. And you remember yesterday when we did the Mag part, it looked like this, and we did the Sork this day, right? And so I always tell people, what I usually do is on a Sunday, I'll sit and plan my content schedule with flexibility because something will come up and screw it up. So Monday, we're going to do a budget build. In the morning, it might take me 3 or 4 hours, and we'll do a couple hours of Zerg. And Wednesday, we might go on PCU and try to hit the sewers, or we'll do that. Really, really, really helps you as a streamer versus I'm going to fire up the game, do crafting writs, and then figure out what else to do. Again, not telling what everyone else to do, but this is what's worked for me really well is not just treating your YouTube as a content agenda and plan, but your broadcast. When you go watch SportsCenter, the news, Netflix, whatever you watch, do they wing it? Never, right? They don't wing it. They're doing something. They're researching something. They're presenting the information. They've already done the homework. So if they're tuning in, people are tuning into you. They're much more interested. I found, in my opinion, when you have that agenda and outline. Monday, it's budget build day. What are we working on today? Chat, what gear sets should we work on? Well, let's test it out. What skills do you think we should do? Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it works, sometimes it bombs, but we all learn something. We could take away from the stream and go, okay, this set sucked. Why? This set, wow, we found out this skill really rocks and no one even knew about it. I don't know what you feel about that, but that's how I approach my weekly plan for broadcasting versus I'm going to wing it. And don't wing it.
Yeah, so all I can ever speak to is my own self anecdotally. That's how I, with ADHD, connect to people. But I actually think what you're saying is very true. That's been my experiences. When I talked about clocking in 9 to 5, and unfortunately, I had a lot of health concerns at the start of the year. So I'm going to use that because when I could stream. My schedule was wonky, and it was a lot of winging it. And while my numbers were, not super low or down, you could look at it, and over time, it just wasn't the same content. It wasn't as engaging. What I mean by that is, even if the viewership was there, people were coming in, they were chatting about this or that or things I'd bring up over stream. There wasn't the excitement or the engagement that I used to get. And that's what I got back to after my health squared back around. And that's what I'd always done. That's actually something I bring up when people ask how I grew. I go, I'm just one person, but my experience was exactly what you're saying. I would write just kind of a, even if I ended up not making a YouTube video because I'm still learning to edit and sometimes the process, I can't get them all done, but what is the YouTube video? And even if it's not a YouTube video, what is the core? What is the nucleus of content? Today is free apartment tier list. Okay, that's the content. And like I said, the rest of the day could just be winging it, figuring out other things to do in ESO, playing around like you said, but going into each stream with this is today's stream. This is today's stream. And then having big streams that I'm planning towards. So like, this is today's stream. We're going to spend a few hours here. This is today's streams. This is what we're going to do. And we're working towards, for the last big thing I did was at the end of December, started January. I did New Life in Real Life, where I went through all the New Life Festival stuff, and I poured an ice bucket on my head and slammed a mud pie in my face. And I basically did this comedic stream where I challenged myself to a series of things and did these things on stream that were recreating the New Life in Real Life. And that was like something we built towards. But yeah, when I was building towards things, when I had these focuses, not only do they translate through for videos, but they translate through to stream, because there's always like, today, this is what we're doing. Like today, this is the plan. And then the other hours, like you said, if there's other hours, you can just wing it. But yeah, I think if you don't have a plan, it can become really hard to wing it. Because if you wing it, you're just doing, winging is just basically playing the game. Not anything necessarily wrong with that if you're playing the game, but if you're trying to make content, I always found like, sometimes my streams have been winging it, and it's just kind of, people enjoy it, but it's not the same. I don't feel like, I don't come away feeling like I made content. I feel like I came away just playing the game with some friends, which is great, but I want to play the game with friends with a goal, with content, with something that I'm delivering, whether it be entertainment, education, or whatnot.
And then I think you had said earlier something that's really important is kind of building up like a month. I think like once a month for me is the right thing to have a big event. So we did a charity live stream. We've done a subathon. We've done like PTS things. Um, I'm trying to plan returning to consoles. I just got an Xbox too, so I want to do that. But like something out of the norm, big that you promote over like 3 or 4 weeks that people can get excited about. That's different. Because I find myself when I've gotten to wing it mode, where I'm not enthusiastic about making a YouTube video, or I don't have anything new and original to do, and I'm just firing up. I'll just do battlegrounds and go do a dungeon, and it's just not interesting. It's just not. And the numbers will say the same, but and some days are good to do communities. I've found just doing a trial with everybody and doing dungeons and just chatting and taking it easy. But that's content in of itself because people feel like a part of the action versus just going to do some battlegrounds. I know what we're going to do today. And we all hit those ruts. But I found that when I'm on my best is, usually once a month, some big thing for fun.
Yeah. And like you said, I used to do week plans too, and I'm getting back to doing week plans. And community days are content in of themselves because you can think about it a little more. What are we doing as a community? Because you have to whatever you're doing, you have to play tour guide a bit because it's your voice stream and stuff. So I think that's really important. I think that's something that anyone can look at because I would say that my growth over 2021, the reason I got partnered within my first year had to do with the fact that I went into everything with a plan. You can't plan for growth, but you can set yourself up for taking advantage of things and for the best chances at growth. And like it's that off hours work, it's the thinking about streams. And I want to roll back real quick before we get to we wrap up about time, because a lesson I had to learn probably 2 times and I find myself falling into outside of a subathon whose nature is time is I would do like 14-hour streams, 16-hour streams. I just have an 18-hour stream. And like you said, there is diminishing returns because even if people are engaging on and off throughout the whole thing, even if numbers are good throughout the whole thing, et cetera, I was, like you mentioned, if I do an 18-hour stream, not only am I tired the next day, I've removed hours that I can think about YouTube content. I've removed hours I can think about planning my next event stream. Like you said, I have, outside of something like a subathon, I've removed all this time that could have been focused on growth. And honestly, if I'm spreading myself over 18 hours, I could have given a solid 6 to 8 hours. I could have given like I could have done a third of the time and given an intense 6 hours. I think an intense 6 is better than a stretched out 12, unless like the nature of the content is very long. So like, some content's just going to be long, but on average, I think for me, I've always found like if you don't stream enough hours, then you're not really gonna. I don't really get up to speed till the first couple hours into stream. Sometimes even 3 hours. I feel like 6, 7 is really ideal. Still giving myself time to do stuff.
I think you're dead on. So I try to balance that, especially when there's events going. For me, it's easy to say, "Oh, I'm at 1,000 viewers. I'm just going to stream indefinitely." But what happens is I have to set up boundaries for myself because I realize that having intensity is not an issue for me. Managing my intensity is an issue for me. And what's the only thing that's going to hold me back from being successful in being sustainable long term, because that's what I'm trying to do. I want to die when I'm streaming. I mean, I want to die on making a YouTube video. What am I going to do? Go retire? What am I going to do? I can, maybe mentor other content creators, but I'm going to do something until I die. Health permitting, till I'm DIE, I'm doing something. So I look at that as a sustainable aspect. And what's not sustainable for me is long-term streams. What's not sustainable for me is staying up late. It just doesn't work. Everyone told me you got to stream on, evenings, got to stream on the weekends. I'm like, it's a boundary that I'll, extend for various things. But every time I do, every single time, it backfires. So if I do a 12-hour stream, am I going to stream the next day? I'll probably be trashed because I can't maintain who I am in that intensity for a very long time, just because that's what the stream is for me. Some people can sit there and talk and be very quiet and, they're just playing the game and they can maintain that level for a very long time. But it's almost exactly at 6 hours I run out of gas, like almost every single day. 6 hours. So I'm feeling good. Chat's interactive, and we're at 7. We'll keep going. But I find that when I'm not talking a lot, I'm done. It's not fun watching me.
Yeah, the minute I stop talking, that's my issue is the opposite, and it's a hyper focused ADHD thing. My energy can be there for 18 hours, so I have to think about it. I'm gonna go all the way back early in the podcast. I have to think about it like grouping up, going to take 15 minutes out of my day to go get a tank of gas. I have to go, I need to turn this hyper focus off. I can do a 12-hour stream right now. I can tell I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it. The conversation is flowing. Creativity is going. I have an idea for this house I want to put together, etc., or this fashion. But I need to prioritize my day. So maybe if we get off at when the energy's up here, we can carry that energy to the next stream, and then I can take the rest of the energy for the day, like you said, mentioning planning your day out, getting gas and stuff, and we can drop that into something else that I also need to focus on. Because my issue would be like, I'm in it in the energy, and I wouldn't divert that towards other areas. I would just put it all into the thing I was doing, to the stream I was doing, not realizing like the best shows, the best almost any form of entertainment, is like leaving off on a high point. Like, we're not going to do like I don't make the sort of content that can have a cliffhanger, but I can have the sort of content that leaves off on a high energy, so people are like, okay, we're at this peak, and then come back in the next day at that same peak, versus like waiting until I'm like
trashed.
All of a sudden I'm like, oh, I haven't talked for 3.5 minutes. All right, we're done with stream. Like, as soon as I catch that, I'm done. I don't keep playing past that. But like, why play down the energy slope instead of cutting off at a peak?
That's a good point. Yeah, I never thought about the peaking thing. I've done it naturally, but not thinking about it. Like, sometimes we'll have a goal in Cyrodiil, or like to get Emperor for somebody, or finish up a BG or something. And usually it's a fun community thing we can just all laugh and do at the end of the stream. Just because I can only take so much PvE before I just got to go, mindlessly PvP for a while. But the peak, leaving off on a peak, that's a real interesting. It's like watching a football game or a sporting event where it's down to the wire, one team wins, one team loses, but it was just epic. All right, we'll see you next week. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's not anything I've mastered, but that's kind of like recently evaluating my goals. Like that's kind of a place I've got to with goals. So because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. Anybody who's listening to this on Spotify or watching this on YouTube, the Q&A gets released as separate content. So you'll be able to find all of that. But before we get to that, before we wind down, there's two things I really wanted to make sure that we touched on. One of them is, obviously we didn't get a lot to like the PvP, PvE, stuff like that about ESO, and that's fine. We can maybe get on a podcast in the future and talk about that. But I really want to talk about something really awesome. Is you raised a ton of money for charity, and you did it with collaborative streaming with a bunch of streamers, YouTubers throughout the community. You raised a ton of money. Can you talk about that? Because I think that was one of the probably, for a fundraiser that was organized by one person and run kind of dedicated on one channel, that was tremendous. Because usually you see fundraisers spread out a bunch of people, and you had this really focused approach, but instead of having a bunch of people fundraising separately, you kind of brought a bunch of people together towards the cause you're raising money for. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that experience, the money you raised, and the cause you raised it for. I think it was really cool.
Okay, yeah, let me give a long-winded explanation of this, but that's really the Fisher House Foundation, and this fundraiser happened last year, which caused me basically to come back into content creation full time. I joined a podcast. We talked about it. I got a wild hair to start streaming again. I was comfy in a federal government job, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just take a couple of days off and do a 24-hour live stream and just see how much money we can raise for the Fisher House Foundation. One opened where I live in Omaha, Nebraska. And what they do is kind of like a Ronald McDonald House for military veterans. So they're built on VA facilities, Department of Defense, military installations. And if someone's sick and their family is out of town visiting, they can stay for free. And so this had some relevance to me as an Army veteran, active duty, and came back after deployment. And I was a hot mess express, basically. And my mom had to drive some appointments I couldn't drive, had some procedures or whatever. And she didn't have to stay anywhere. We weren't inpatient overnight, but it could have happened. You live in Nebraska or rural areas, there's very few resources. So almost everyone has to travel for hours and hours and hours to get any type of specialty care, especially cancer treatment. So you'd have people, drive 4 hours one way, get their radiation treatment, whatever, drive 4 hours back. Well, that's what the Fisher House solves. So giving people a place to stay, maybe they're getting cancer treatment for 6-8 weeks. They're staying there for free. You know, a night in a hotel in Omaha is like $125. So they save an enormous amount of money. So I contacted them and it started going good. And last year we raised $10,000, but it was this huge return to, you know, YouTube and content creation. And so something I learned from that experience, I did a 24 hours live stream talking about the 6-hour cap. It's not very good for me. And so I decided to do like a week-long campaign and have some folks that, you know, I've touched base with and get along than me, get together and kind of interview them and highlight them as well, and then share in our community so that we could both basically grow from this and learn from this and ultimately have fun, you know, like you and me were doing for a little bit and doing some other fun stuff. And so that's what I did. It took me a lot of time, a lot of planning, and a lot of energy. I was pretty taxed at the end of the day because I'm a control freak, so I don't want anything to go wrong, and I have 1,000 redundancy plans and just kind of my nature of who I am. So we did a week-long campaign and had 2 guests on pretty much every single day, and just did a various amount of stuff and just chatted and got to know different people. And there's just so many cool people in Elder Scrolls Online. It's a very diverse community, and it reminds me in a different way of what it was like being in the military, which, you know, I was joining active duty when I was 17 years old. You know, my mom's doing my laundry for me. Here I am in Fort Benning, Georgia, with grown men that have children. You know, it was a culture shock to me, right? And so ESO has this really cool, diverse population with way different interests than me. You know, I don't get into the housing so much, but I respect people that love that creativity and aspect. I want to find out what about that is interesting to them. So I think it makes for unique content than doing, I'm going to run the same dungeon over and over and over and do the same battleground. So we got Fang Rush back, Skinny Cheeks came, you obviously, Hack, brought so many people. I think that was a really fun approach, but it took a lot of gas out of me. Anyways, we hit $13,000. The chat or whatever you want to say raised $8,000. We got a $5,000 sponsor. So
amazing.
That's an enormous amount of money. I really didn't know what to set the goal to, because I'm like, well, I mean, these folks spend a lot of their money supporting me with subs and gifted subs, and it's like, what do you set it to? Like, you know,
you don't want to bleed your community.
You want to bleed them dry. And you had the Ukraine war, and so we were originally going to do it in March because that's right around tax season, and usually, you know, folks can donate and get a tax deductible thing. More on that later. But with the Ukraine war, I'm like, I just don't feel right about it. So I had to postpone everything and postpone the plans, because I'm like, you know, that deserves its own space for a while. And then you're like, well, when is a while? So there's all these different elements. And at some point, you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I was trying to time it when the PTS launched and everything. But it was a really good experience. I learned a lot of pros, a lot of cons, what to do, how to hype it up, market it a little bit earlier, how to drive the content. But at the end of the day, it was a great experience because we could brought a lot of people together to show various different aspects of the game and different people. And that's what the MMO space is all about, is just the different people. I mean, I ultimately play ESO just because I like the people that play it at this point. I like the game, but I like the people. It's just, you know, even in Cyrodiil, we're talking trash to each other, but there's really no hard feelings. You know, if you dunk on me or whatever and people clip it, fine, it doesn't bother me. Or if I dunk on you, I might talk a little trash, but I expect it back, you know, and that's part of the fun of it. But it was just a great experience to think at my level of influence, where I am currently, to be able to do that singly with an enormous community. It's pretty touching. So yeah.
13,000 is a lot of money. And like you said, it's all a learning experience. Like your 24-hour stream, okay, a week-long stream. And I think that's really, again, the crux of everything we talked about. If anybody wants like a single elevator pitch takeaway, it's, you know, have determination, you know, be willing to overcome your limits, and be willing to just be critical of yourself. Not mean, but critical, and learn from, you know, hardship as well as success. I think that's been a really big chunk of what we've talked about. And I think that, I think you'd been live for an hour before I jumped on with you, and before I got off, I was only on for 2 hours, you already at like $3,200. ask me questions about dyeing your hair purple. So it was and I think the other thing I want to bring up that you brought up there a lot is the community, and I think that's really something cool about the ESO community overall, because usually people stay within their quote unquote peer groups. And honestly, you and I actually started talking. I think I'd asked you to be on the podcast, but other than that, we started talking a little bit here and there. But you'd reached out to me to talk about stuff, and like that's really cool about the directory, because people will watch each other, talk to each other, and reach out regardless of like who's bigger, who's smaller, and stuff like that. It really is a community, and I think that was really cool to showcase all those voices. I just think it was a tremendous week.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll just give you a props that I reached out to you because I'm not a big watcher of Twitch. It's something I probably need to do more of, but I liked your polish and your professionalism, and you were interesting. I think you have a very wide range of interest and experience, and it was fascinating to listen to you talk about things maybe differently than I would approach it. So that's why I was attracted to you, and I was like, all right, well, let's just ask them some questions, because no one knows it all. And if anyone knows me that's worked with me professionally, I ask a lot of questions. I ask constantly. And maybe I don't take people's advice all the time, but I always want to know what's wrong and what's working right, so we can drill in on what's working right and what's working wrong, try and experiment constantly. But I love asking questions because everyone has something of value. It's not always about your viewer count. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not always about that. And yes, it's a business. Yes, we're doing this. But just because you're doing well doesn't mean we can't do well together.
Exactly. We talked about that earlier, and I agree completely. And kind of like what you're mentioning with, like, kind of honing in on things and what people do well and what they don't do well. And advice is the thing with advice. I think that's true. You can talk to somebody, ask a bunch of questions, get advice. I always say, if somebody says something and it resonates with me or rings kind of true, I take it and I sit with it, I chew on it, and then figure out if somebody says something that just goes in one ear and out the other, I go, okay, well, that's a piece of advice that just doesn't work for me. But I always find that talking to people and communicating, there's always a bunch of things that just stick, and they stick in there, and you can learn a lot from each other. Because again, it's not just what you've done in content creation. We all come from different backgrounds, going all the way back to like you being in school with, dyslexia, your fitness background, military, and all these things. There's so much background, and I bring in like analytics and stuff from brand development. Like, we all have different backgrounds, and we bring all these different viewpoints, and we can mix and match and kind of really learn from each other. So I do want to make sure. Oh, sorry.
And value.
And value.
Every human being has value regardless of their viewer count.
Yeah. And I think for anybody who's listening to this, who is a streamer or wants to stream or wants to make YouTube videos or TikToks or whatever, that's what you should really take away from a lot of what Deltia said. The big takeaway, besides all of like the perseverance and things like that, is everybody has value. And it might take you a year, it might take you a while to figure out what that is, but finding your voice and finding your value and find out because people like you, people come to you for certain things in your everyday life, like Deltia said, talking to, significant others and friends and stuff. So finding that and honing in on that, everybody has value and can create content. So if you are a content creator, it's finding that more than anything.
Yep. And just don't give up, and give it a year if you want to, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But as long as you can look at those experiences as learning experiences, and learn from it and move forward, it can help you in a lot of different varieties and different ways. But you all have value, and just got to find what that is and crank it up and see if you can share it with other people.
All right. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.